I would like to welcome Ioannis Papadakis, Head of QA at Snappi. He's going to talk about mastering the art of AI communication, a framework for crafting effective prompts. Please welcome Ioannis.
Okay, back next. I'm not doing that, right? It's AI. But I don't see the guy up there. I want to test something. So I'm a tester. That's why we are testing something over here. I hope it's not AI or a robot or something. I can start, I think. Right? Okay, we're testing a few. Okay, I can talk for myself until we finish the testing part. I have few guys up there. I think I worked with previous colleagues, so I'm very super happy about this presentation. I'm this guy. I haven't put too much things about me. I'm going to describe a little bit about me. So I'm very passionate about product and engineering and quality. Right now, it's engineering. I think quality is transforming itself. It's a domain that it's part of engineering, and now with AI shifting the whole landscape in engineering, there are a lot of things that a tester or a human tester can do, actually. This presentation today, it's about mastering the whole thing of AI communication. We're going to talk how we can craft effective prompts. We will deep dive into prompt engineering. Of course, there are a lot of people. I heard a lot of nice solutions around AI previously, from a few guys that I know from Agile Actors and other companies. I mean, oh my God, it's blown away. They are, using AI very efficiently, and it's like very practical examples that are, are taking a very good shape in the industry, let's say. So the agenda for today, and I hope you will be with me, it's 2 hours. If I see somebody sleeping, I'm going to nudge you or something. So I'm very, I'm very a guy that we need the audience with us. So I think you will be here. It's a very interesting topic. We'll do a very brief introduction. I don't want to stick to the theoretical parts, but we'll talk about prompt engineering a lot in this workshop. How we can craft prompts that are efficient right now. And the whole idea is there is a new field which is called prompt engineering. This came up very, very fast when we introduced AI to the tech world. So the part of the QA person or the QA domain is very important when it comes to prompt engineering. We'll show some prompt techniques, how we can efficiently test LLMs in a part of how we can actually have more effective, let's say, techniques to do prompt engineering. Talk about prompt architecture, and we'll see some questions at the end. So today, I think we are going to share the presentation. Here is a link. This is the framework from a nice guy and a friend of mine that I have, which I didn't put his name, so between us, don't tell him. He developed a framework which is called Crafting AI Prompts Framework. So it has a very detailed, let's say, step-by-step guide, how we can be proficient when it comes to crafting AI prompts. You're going to master it. I'm advising everybody, if you get this presentation, go to the link, just forget the other slides that I have put down, because this guy is actually developing an art when it comes to prompt engineering, how we create prompts efficiently. Whether you are using ChatGPT, it doesn't matter. I mean, Microsoft Copilot, there are all the tools, all the engines out there. But it comes to how you efficiently use them in your day-to-day. So if you are wondering how to craft an efficient prompt, generate prompts, or using prompting techniques, I think you are in the right place here today with me, right? All right. a brief introduction about prompt engineering. You'll see some of the techniques high level. In the bottom, you see the models that the prompt engineering use. It doesn't matter. But there are some techniques you'll see in the pillars, like zero shot or few shot. Who heard about this zero shot technique? Right. Okay. So we'll focus on creating these prompts that are, maintainable and sustainable. You don't want to end up with databases full of unused prompts, especially if you have your own, a model created. Now, like many companies are actually having databases with prompts that are inefficient right now and redundant. So we'll learn how to efficiently use this and transform the prompts in a way responsibly, of course, ensuring that we can reuse them, we can adapt to them over time. So with all these insights, we will be very equipped to create and improve the prompt engineering within the organization. Any questions? I can do it with questions runtime. We'll leave it in the end, sorry. So let's start from basics. I'm a guy that, I'm not going to talk about prompt engineering very technically today, rather than touch the surface, let's say, and we're going to talk a little bit step by step from the basics. It's important because not all of the people have this knowledge. So before we dive into more technical parts, it's important to understand the basics of Gen AI, which is the technology behind all of this. We can create text, we can create images, videos, or even sounds. So the LLMs, it's a key part of this Gen AI we're going to see later on. We'll touch a little bit the diffusion models. A lot of speakers said about this yesterday, which is another type of Gen AI. And if you have heard the diffusion models, they are used for creating, images that have very good quality and maybe other media as well. What is an LLM? That's the basic. Let's start from these basics. So LLM, everybody's talking about LLMs, LAMs, and other terminologies we heard yesterday. They are designed to recognize and generate human-like text, right? You know all these engines. How they are doing, they are getting vast amount of data in order to generate this. These models are actually trained using user data, extensive data sets from around, from books, articles, websites, different data sources each time. They can perform a lot of different tasks. We can do translation, for example. We can do a grammar. We can write code or produce code for us. So they can perform a lot of different tasks like this. There are complex algorithms behind them. And there are a lot of deep learning techniques in order to do so. And these are actually powerful tools. Everybody wants to have them. It's part of our daily life as engineers or product-oriented persons. So they are behind all the nice applications you are using in your daily lives, like ChatGPT, Copilot, Gemini, and far more. So they are revolutionizing. So you will say, okay, we know about our LLMs, what it is, right? But how these LLMs are actually shaping the quality world, the engineering world, we're going to talk a little bit more today. So before understanding, before understanding the prompt engineering, how it works, let's go to understand how they are based. So we have the prediction-based, which is, this is the heart of the LLMs, let's say. So what they are designed to do, they are designed to predict. That's why we're calling them prediction-based. So they are trying to predict the next token in a sequence. So you provide the text to the LLM engine, and it's actually separating each token of the text and try to predict the next one. So in the playground, you can go and start typing prompts and see how the tokens are actually splitted. You can put your own words, paragraphs, or sentences. And sometimes the models, we need to test them, right? That's why we have the QA people as well in this process. So these people are transforming the way these actual applications are used and being developed. We will see now today an actual example of a sentence to see that there were earlier versions of these engines that made mistakes. And that's why the quality control is really critical. They are not perfect. They're being trained from data, but they can do mistakes. So these incorrect answers in the AI world, let's say, we are talking this, and usually you will hear the term hallucinations. So it refers to instances where the model generates some information which is not like correct. It can be fabricated or not grounded in the input that we provide as user in the model. So let's see an example on that. Here is an example. We have a sentence. How many R's are there in the word strawberry? I opened my Copilot here. I have the laser, right? Yeah, this one. So surprisingly, it returns 2 R's, but the sentence has 3, right? So we get the first problematic, let's say, answer from our engine. We're going to see why and how we can play around with the tokens. So in the token playground, I'm typing my sentence over here. You can do that as well. This is why we have this workshop. Unfortunately, we cannot experiment runtime. But if you open your playground, just type your sentence. You will see how many tokens this sentence has and how many characters are there in the sentence. So the whole idea is token-based, as we said. So the whole sentence is tokenized into 11 tokens. And the strawberry, you see, it's considered to be a single token, right? The whole word, it's a single token. That's why we have 11 from the playground. So we need to have this in mind when we are crafting our prompts. In an LLM, a token is simply, as we said in the video, it's a simple number, like that represents, it can represent a word, a part of a phrase, a whole paragraph. It's up to us to define what it is. So if you instead of working directly with the text, the LLM breaks down the input into all these tokens that you see. So let's go to the next and see a different approach now. What we do is we give some spaces in our word. The strawberry word, you'll see some spaces. So the spaces are increasing the number of tokens in the playground. So this is why we need to understand a little bit what's the token-based approach in this LLM and the prompt engineering. It influences the way the engine responds to the prompts, into the users, and eventually to the questions. So we need to experiment with the tokenization very much. That's the whole reason. And you will see here, just by simply specifying spaces in the word, you get the correct answer back from the LLM now. Because you crafted a different prompt, actually, from the original one. And this is the way that the engine should be used. You need to test, actually, the output. Don't take it for granted. At the same time, you train as well the models to perform better. So the context window, it's part of it's part of the LLM. Who knows the context window? What does it mean? You know everything. Do you want to take the presentation for me? I'm so anxious for that. Sorry. It's very basic. I'm kidding. Very nice. We'll have some talk later. So it defines the maximum number of the tokens. So the model can process at a given time, let's say. It's actually the memory, or the current memory of the LLM. That's the whole idea. Tokens, in this case, represents the units of the text, as we said, word, a paragraph. It can be, different characters, in order, the model to use to produce the results that we need and to have. So as we said, it represents the working memory of the model. It's very critical for keeping the dialogue or the text generation very coherent and reliable, let's say. It's a fixed limit, just like any memory, right? And it's specified based on the architecture that we use, like the models that we use. For example, in GPT-3, I think it's like 4,096 tokens defined. So let's talk about the components now of the context window. So we have system prompt, user prompt, model output, and previous conversation history. You have seen that if you just open your ChatGPT, they are there, all the components that you can see over there. System prompt, have you seen system prompt in ChatGPT? Anyone? Right. Did you see that? I thought it's a hidden. It's a hidden, of course. I'm just, so it's a hidden prompt. Sorry? You can change it, yes, of course. Maybe we can have the mic for the guys, you know, it's nice to, you know, to respond back with the dialogue. Organizers, if they want, that's fine. If they don't, that's okay as well. So it's a hidden. It actually guides the whole idea, it guides the model's behavior. It can guide the tone, it can guide the style. So it can define rules, for example, to be polite. Or to be more formal when you are crafting your prompts. The user prompt, it's the user input. I think it's very clear. It can be a single question. You can ask as well your LLM. It can be a more complex request, like a more sophisticated one. We'll see some examples later on. The previous conversation history, which is really nice as a feature to see what happened previously, past interaction with your engine, and see how it responds back. You can do some comparisons, very good. And then model output, which is if you are including the previous responses of your model, this too takes up space in the context window as a case. So if all of these components are exceeding the size of the window, the model can no longer retain all the input data, and sometimes you need to open a new session, for example, or a new chat. So sometimes this means that you need to keep a new history with your with new prompts, let's say. Now, the diffusion model, we said it earlier, it's type of Gen AI as well. It's designed to create highly quality images and other media. So it can transform simple ones to more complicated structures. It's very critical and complex process, let's say. But it, until we resemble the desired output that we want, we need to train and do more sophisticated prompt engineering rather than just, placing text. So what the process is doing is reversing the natural diffusion process, where noise spreads out and disrupts an image. So instead, the model learns to reconstruct the whole image from this noise. It can be guided through specific patterns to do it, and it's actually learning from vast data sets like in the normal situations. They are very powerful, as we said, in generating detailed and more realistic images. I think a lot of speakers talked about this the previous day. Nice. So, I'm talking too much, a lot of introduction, but the whole idea is the prompt engineering by the end of the day. So it's an emerging discipline. The engineering teams should have it. Our QA teams should have it as well, because we need to test all these new technologies that are arising. We need to have also a part of engineering to maximize the effectiveness of these models when it comes to integrating your, in your products as well. And you need to know, so this process is a little bit complicated, not so simple as we are saying here today. The tokens can be words. I think yesterday we said this in a few presentations. They can be words or whole sentences, doesn't matter. But what we are trying to do is trying to learn language patterns and relationships between the tokens. This is how the LLMs are actually operating. So when you input a prompt, the model generates a response by predicting each subsequent token. so it can create coherent, contextually appropriate text in the end. Why I'm talking this, we need to understand that the LLMs are prediction-based. It's really critical because it highlights the function of the models. And it can actually highlight that the models can do mistakes, right, in the prediction. And that's why we need QA, like me, in the world. And AI is shaping QA for that reason. We are not fully ready to embrace, let's say, 100% the technology. So since they rely on probabilities that are coming from the training data and the different data sources, their predictions cannot be accurate all the time, right? They can be maybe irrelevant as well. So we need engineers to continue using them, train them, understand them in a more deeper, let's say, level. So I think I will stop. We have a video, and hopefully this video will play. This is what we were testing in the beginning, and as I spent like a minute. All right, let's see. We are testing still. Great. Second here. Are we good? 1 second. So will not hear me for 5 minutes. I know, guys, sorry, we have 2 hours. You can hear me in the next 1.5 hours. So let's do some 5 minutes intro on this.
Hi, I'm Mira Murati. I'm the Chief Technology Officer at OpenAI, the company that created ChatGPT. I really wanted to work on AI because it has the potential to really improve almost every aspect of life and help us tackle really hard challenges.
Hi, I'm Cristóbal Valenzuela, CEO and co-founder of Runway. Runway is a research company that builds AI algorithms for storytelling and video creation.
Chatbots like ChatGPT are based on a new type of AI technology that's called large language models. So instead of a typical neural network, which trains on a specific task, like how to recognize faces or images, a large language model is trained on the largest amount of information possible, such as everything available on the internet.
It uses this training to then be able to generate completely new information, like to write essays or poems, have conversations, or even write code. The possibilities seem endless.
But how does this work, and what are its shortcomings? Let's dive in. While a chatbot built on a large language model may seem magical, it works based on some really simple ideas. In fact, most of the magic of AI is based on very simple math concepts, from statistics applied billions of times using fast computers. The AI uses probabilities to predict the text that you want it to produce, based on all the previous text that it has been trained on. Suppose that we want to train a large language model to read every play written by William Shakespeare, so that it could write new plays in the same style. We'd start with all the texts from Shakespeare's plays, stored letter by letter in a sequence. Next, we'd analyze each letter to see what letter is most likely to come next. After an I, the next most likely letters that show up in Shakespeare plays are S or N. After an S, T, C, or H, and so on. This creates a table of probabilities. With just this, we can try to generate new writing. We pick a random letter to start. Starting with the first letter, we can see what's most likely to come next. We don't always have to pick the most popular choice, because that would lead to repetitive cycles. Instead, we pick randomly. Once we have the next letter, we repeat the process to find the next letter and then the next one, and so on. Okay, well, that doesn't look at all like Shakespeare. It's not even English, but it's a first step. This simple system might not seem even remotely intelligent, but as we build up from here, you'll be surprised where it goes.
The problem in the last example is that at any point, the AI only considers a single letter to pick what comes next. That's not enough context, and so the output is not helpful. What if we could train it to consider a sequence of letters, like sentences or paragraphs, to give it more context to pick the next one? To do this, we don't use a simple table of probabilities. We use a neural network. A neural network is a computer system that is loosely inspired by the neurons in the brain. It is trained on a body of information, and with enough training, it can learn to take in new information and give simple answers. The answers always include probabilities because there can be many options.
Now let's take a neural network and train it on all the letter sequences in Shakespeare's plays to learn what letter is likely to come next at any point.
Once we do this, the neural network can take any new sequence and predict what could be a good next letter. Sometimes the answer is obvious, but usually it's not.
It turns out this new approach works better, much better. By looking at a long enough sequence of letters, the AI can learn complicated patterns, and it uses those to produce all new text.
It starts the same way, with a starting letter and then using probabilities to pick the next letter, and so on. But this time, the probabilities are based on the entire context of what came beforehand. As you see, this works surprisingly well.
Now, a system like ChatGPT uses a similar approach, but with three very important additions. First, instead of just training on Shakespeare, it looks at all the information it can find on the internet, including all the articles on Wikipedia or all the code on GitHub. Second, instead of learning and predicting letters from just the 26 choices in the alphabet, it looks at tokens, which are either full words or word parts, or even code. And third difference is that a system of this complexity needs a lot of human tuning to make sure it produces reasonable results in a wide variety of situations, while also protecting against problems like producing highly biased or even dangerous content. Even after we do this tuning, it's important to note that this system is still just using random probabilities to choose words.
A large language model can produce unbelievable results that seem like magic. But because it's not actually magic, it can often get things wrong. And when it gets things wrong, people ask, does a large language model have actual intelligence? Discussions about AI often spark philosophical debates about the meaning of intelligence. Some argue that a neural network producing words using probabilities doesn't have real intelligence.
But what isn't under debate is that large language models produce amazing results with applications in many fields. This technology is already being used to create apps and websites, help produce movies and video games, and even discover new drugs. The rapid acceleration of AI will have enormous impacts on society, and it's important for everybody to understand this technology. What I'm looking forward to is the amazing things people will create with AI. And I hope you dive in to learn more about how AI works and explore what you can build with it.
Cool. Oh my God, I forgot what I was talking in the previous slide. Sorry, it was a 6-minute video. That's why. But I wanted to show you very basic stuff on this video. Maybe we can invite the CTO of ChatGPT next year. I don't know. The whole idea is about prompt engineering, the applications of all this AI. We heard about how the prompt engineering actually heavily, depends on the probabilities and prediction models. And you saw this token-based approach as well. So it's critical to understand how the tokens are actually working. This is how these engines are actually operating. So a great way is we need to experiment with tokens. It's the OpenAI's playground. Who used that? Anyone? Just raise hand. Oh, nice. Of your writing style. So it will respond back based on the role, because we're providing a role or a user persona. So this approach is really significant, helps to have more relatable and engaging delivery of the output of the information. But you need to be very, very careful. The register can be influenced by cultural differences present in the training data. So they can impact the way the communication actually is perceived. For example, the way that you talk to a friend might be completely different from another person that talks to their friend as well. So you have different or cultural differences in these inputs. And the engine or the LLM doesn't know who your friend is, so you need to guide through the whole engine to understand the content of yours or the details of your prompt. Now you'll see an example here. The strategy, we need to learn our own register. You know, beyond of the original content and instruction to the LLM, you need to replicate a writing style that fits your needs. Here you will see here I'm typing, give me 20 registers I could use to write a LinkedIn post, right? So what the Copilot replies back, it's just 20 ideas, which are the registers, just to write a LinkedIn post in order to engage with our audience and build our professional presence. So if you are unsure about which register best suits your needs, because you don't know which one you can use, you need to seek suggestions from the model, because the model knows it has a lot of information about the data that are flowing, for example, from LinkedIn, right? You can request general advice. Here it's a more general advice that give me 20 register. I want to write a LinkedIn post. How I'm going to write it? So, but you need to start from somewhere when it comes to, you know, the writing style. These guides that we're talking about, the registers, are defining, you know, your voice, your tone, how you're crafting the prompts efficiently. And it's like a style guide for me. So by incorporating style guides into the prompts that we are using, we are ensuring that the LLM will generate what I want to generate from the LLM. So here, the style guide can include voice and tone characteristics. You can talk to the model through voice recognition. You can specify your emotions as well. I think yesterday we talked about a little bit about this. Terminology, phrases, grammar, preferences, formatting conventions, and brand-specific guidelines, and there are a lot of more. So all these are types of guides that you can specify your own tone when you are crafting your prompt. The first part is the acting role, A, as well. You need to decide on persona, like, for example, I want to write a LinkedIn post, but you need to define what's the persona, right? Like a LinkedIn expert, or a QA engineer, or engineering manager. Just write me a post that an engineering manager is writing on LinkedIn post. So we need to decide on the persona. It's really critical, the role that the LLM will take on. We can enhance the engagement. They will have a different way that they are responding based on the persona that you're providing. So there are different perspectives here or opinion. By assigning, though, the role, you will guide the responses to align with the desired expertise, especially when it comes to the example that we said. So it's instructions at the end of the day. We need to guide the LLM in order to have more intended direction from it. And again, it's really important to consider the cultural differences, right? The influences that we have based on the different culture. They need to be present, they will be present in the training data of the model. So for example, if the model is trained on data from a specific country, let's say, such as US, the output might have different cultural, touches based on the region that we're talking about. We're talking about US, so you have a different cultural approach. For instance, ChatGPT is primarily trained on American data, right? So they can result in a tone that can be part of US, let's say, culture, and it will be it will not be personal to the user that is actually requesting the input. So let's go to the next, and the acting role. Here we need to formulate, as I was saying, the acting role very carefully. We can give examples. We can ask the LLM to write me a LinkedIn post about an article I want to promote, for example, acting as a LinkedIn expert with 10 years of experience. Okay, what we should see about this. You can do these examples as well, but you are defining very clear a role that has a specific, let's say, description. It can become unclear if the task is to write a post, just write a post on LinkedIn. So you define some more information about your acting role, right? So the previous example we talked about was the LLM to adopt the identity of the LinkedIn expert that we're requesting. And it's actually a LinkedIn expert actively posts on LinkedIn, for example, and can articulate this information for generating the prompt efficiently. So we need to define a goal, and persona is part of the goal orientation, let's say. You need to have clarity as well in the prompts, of course, and define the objectives very, very clearly. Incorporating a persona like this in our strategy not only enhances engagement, but it can unlock very creative, let's say, possibilities. We can adapt a character with some specific traits, some specific experiences. We can explore more complex topics, for example, with greater clarity and innovation. So this approach is very useful when exploring, alternative viewpoints or speculative ideas. It can create a more dynamic and interactive, let's say, environment and experience. As the persona can adapt to, changing conversational contexts, making the exchange more vivid when we are talking with our LLM. So the ability to switch between all of these different personas also enables the LLM to address a wide range of inquiries and discussions, improving, as we said, the overall quality. This is our goal. And at some point, we need to test as well. I didn't talk about anything about quality, but it's part of the validation phase we're talking about later. Also there, we need to have a specific role and validate the output based on the role that we use. All right, so another one, when working with these prompts, you have the option to create your own acting roles and refer to them throughout the whole conversation. Of course, it keeps it in the memory. For example, you can specify the role, and then you can keep the crafting prompt, based on the needs. You can use your name as well when you are crafting the prompts. You can predefine that, and the ChatGPT can, or any other engine can respond based on that role. We can include an informal tone or making other adjustments to specify our needs. By doing so, we can prompt more efficiently, and that's the goal of this workshop, right? It's how efficient prompt we can do a more efficient prompt engineering. So additionally, with the custom instructions that ChatGPT has, for example, it's a feature, custom instructions, you can predefine these roles, as I said. So you set up the instructions in the beginning of your prompt, and clearly the LLM responds back based on these instructions that you guided the model. So let's see here another example. What I see in my prompt is if I start my prompt with RWL, then create a LinkedIn post for me, act as a LinkedIn expert, use this register and output in this format, for example. So what the engine understands is that whenever we start the prompt with this expression, I will create the LinkedIn post based on this role that it gave me, This register of data you are uploading, for example, if you have data security, everybody is actually aware about this. There are a lot of concerns, especially in particular domains, can be banking, for example, what type of data you are using, crafting your prompts. But it can make sure that we have meaningful insights all the time when we uploading confidentially, let's say, and achieving outputs that are desired by the user. So the enhancement phase, which is the last one in the internet cycle, emphasizes staying really proactive and embracing new possibilities. We need to adapt our approach. We need to validate the responses of the LLM. It's not a golden rule. It can make mistakes. We are there as quality engineers or engineers to test, the output if it complies to what we are expecting from it. And by doing so, this is an iterative process, meaning that you need to do it. You need to craft your prompts, do a back and forth with your engine, and you need to do it until you get the desired output. So, to create in the crafting phase, it's part of writing the prompt. We need to define the goal, what we want to achieve when we are crafting a prompt, right? It's important to remember, as we said earlier, not to include any confidential data or personal data. It's the part of the phase that we start interacting with our engine, but the real goal is we need to ask ourselves what we're trying to achieve over this, right? We need to create a plan out of this before start, working and playing around with your model. So, for example, if a student is writing an essay for a course, the true goal is to write the essay or simply get a high grade, for example. Of course, someone would say, okay, let's ask the prompt, write me an essay for something and just give it back and we're done. And as Jonathan yesterday said, he can see from miles away what something is generated out of these models or not, because it's very typical nowadays. So you need to have your own touch. Let's say, don't take it for granted and use it in your personal life, everything that has to do with your models. Of course, you need to validate. We'll talk about this in the validation phase later on. This is part of the validation. Validate what the AI produced for you, and just don't use it as it is, right? So for LLMs to fully grasp the whole context, it's essential to provide specific details, as we say here. It's critical to have a clear understanding of the scope and effectively communicate to the LLM. You need to frame your prompts like in a natural language. It's really vital to do that. You need to have a more conversational approach with your engine. A more human-like response needs to be generated. So by using the natural languages, the LLM can better understand your needs, the interactions, the context, the nuances. This facilitates a more smoother communication, a more interactive, let's say, or intuitive interaction with the model. In addition to generate context, to a more general context, it's important to provide clear examples when you are guiding this craft phase. Not too many details. We're going to see some anti-patterns by the end of the workshop, but you need to have clear description on your examples, keywords, maybe citations, quotes. You need to specify your format on the engine. So based on your format, you will have a different output each time. So you need to make sure what is the output that you want to have. So this ensures that the LLM incorporates all the information and it can contribute in a high, let's say, quality response for the end user. So providing these details enhance the overall user experience. It's the goal that we want to have. For example, I give an example here. If you specify how much is 1, 2, 3, 4, 4, 5 until 0, 9, 10, whatever, you receive an incorrect answer. If you type it in your ChatGPT, you'll see that the output is something irrelevant. So therefore, it cannot understand what the context is in order to respond back with the information or the correct information. So the strategy, I don't know why it's a little bit, I thought it's better organized in the slide, but you need to place the context at the end of the prompt. So you see here a template. Just by putting a template in the prompt, you can guide your prompt to use a specific format. Here we just guide to use an acting role, a format, and maybe a registration. And then the text. So you can say to the prompt that this is the result that I want to have, right? Just get this template, and I want anything that I'm asking or prompting, I'm crafting my prompt, I want this format to be applied. So, some pictures are not very good, but the strategy is the next part of the phase. For example, when you are planning a dinner, you could take a picture of all the contents that you have on your refrigerator and ask the LLM to suggest some recipes, for example. You can take the pictures, upload them, and you are asking your LLM, just give me some strategy around it. What should I eat today night, let's say? So it's a practical approach, more a practical approach. So we can generate some meal ideas while avoiding some food waste, for example. Similarly, you can do a lot of other stuff around this, but it's very effective when we describe visual elements, like the one that we show in the example, designs, when we want to analyze specific details in documents, when we provide more real-world examples, like the one I want to provide me, what type of dinner I can have based on what I have, and more technical concepts with, aiding with visual aspects when you're crafting your prompt. And this example is when we incorporate the results, when we're enhancing results with prompt techniques and examples. You'll see we create a persona for our prompt, we give the context, we instruct, we give a lot of examples. We need to know that it can comply to our examples, the format, what type of format I have, it's very critical. When you are talking to execs, maybe sometimes you need to be more formal. So, or if you are talking to engineering teams, it's a different one, or to a customer as well. So you need to have a specified format each time. You need to have some constraints as well. You need to specify that you have some limitations, and the engine needs to know about. The tone is very critical, right? If you have a more formal tone, if you are emotional, I think emotional, I said yesterday in some presentation, they are not meant just to give some emotion to the users. The data, and then the end is the technique. So this is the whole phase of building and enhancing our results for the outputs. So the register, which is the next phase, it's the writing style. So it's the format that we talked about. It's very critical as well. There are some requirements. We need to attempt some more particular writing style. I have here going to a conference and applying for a conference so many times. People from the program committee think, the style and understand default. Okay, it's default, it's ChatGPT, don't pass this guy. So everybody knows that the format is very critical at this stage. I'll just give an example here, but it's a very critical factor. The vocabulary, the grammar, it's all about English, as we said earlier. It's very critical to have your own specific format based on the occasion, for example. So by providing all these details that has to do with the format, the LLM can generate accordingly the outputs. Regarding readability, you have the option to request outputs in a conversational tone, for example. You can write like a simple prompt, write the output as if you are talking to a friend. So you are setting up the format, or the tone actually, of that. It's enhancing our understanding of all these capabilities and constraints of the LLMs that we have. Right, so the challenges we have when we are talking about prompt engineering and what we can tackle actually with prompt engineering, it's cultural nonsense, model bias, unpredictability, lack of real-world knowledge, and the language nonsense. So it's real-world examples that we can actually tackle with sophisticated and more sophisticated prompt engineering. So I will talk a little bit about the branches. In prompt engineering, we have two types. We have user prompt and the system prompt. We saw that in the components earlier. So the system prompt, it's, they have their own unique challenges. In this workshop, we don't talk about the system prompt engineering. We are going to define, work on the first part, how a user can actually craft a more sophisticated framework. There will be two terms, actually, the interactive part, and it will be also the interactive visual prompt engineering. So we have the interactive prompt engineering, and the visual, it's part of the diffusion models we talked earlier. So here's basically the example that differentiate the user prompt from the system prompt. You will see here, we get the user input on the engines, and the user prompt actually has to do with the two types we talked about, the interactive prompt engineering that has to do with the text generation, and the visual prompt engineering, which has to do with the diffusion models and the high-quality images that we're trying to build. And then we have the system prompt that all of these are actually is the communication model for the LLM. So we are going to see more in detail about the user prompt. We're not going to focus today on the system prompt, which is this one. If we are stopping for lunch, someone just can tell me. I think we have time. We are about in half. I'm thinking about the lunch, sorry. It's a bad habit. Interactive prompt engineering. So the first part, it's actually it focuses on the user-facing, I will talk about, aspect of the LLM interaction. It's centered around crafting more effective prompts via the interface as well. So we need to optimize the way that we input this data and how they are actually processed by the LLM systems. So we can generate more text that is making sense for us. So the goal of IPE, or interactive prompt engineering, is to facilitate the effective communication between the user and the LLM. So we can generate more textual output. So it's very critical where direct interaction with LLMs is part of integral. The IPE is critical, but the whole interaction is actually integral. It is deployed right now across all the known tools that we have, or a range of tools and platforms, and when they depend on prompt responsiveness. So they are already deployed on your ChatGPT, your Microsoft Copilot, and all the rest. So what we do with these applications is actually the quality of the user inputs are actually significantly influence the output of these LLMs, or how effective is the output of these AI, let's say, systems. A good approach for the interactive prompt engineering is using the crafting AI prompts framework that I'm here today to talk about. It's designed to empower users to effectively craft prompts, to test these Gen AI tools, and making sure we have the desired output all the time. Now, as we said, while the interactive prompt engineering is actually focusing on the textual part, let's say, or concerns on the textual output of these engines, the next phase is to introduce the interactive visual prompt engineering, which is, as we said, generate quality images, other type of media, maybe some videos, and they are using behind the scene the diffusion models, right? So when the users are providing these prompts that are intended for visual outputs, the system are getting a cutting edge, let's say, image and video generation, and they use these technologies to create a more dynamic, let's say, model. The system prompt engineering, which is the last part, it's not part of the workshop, but it focuses on development and refinement of system-level prompts within LLM and diffusion models. This aspect, it's actually, like crafting more sophisticated backend prompts, and these are guiding our LLM responses by the end for the user. They are incorporating technologies like the RAGs we talked about yesterday and today, the retrieval augmented generation, or graph RAG. So they are more sophisticated, let's say, rather than the user prompt engineering. It's playing their role as well. So we have a solid understanding up until now what the prompt engineering is, what type of components we have. We need to start exploring the framework, right? And we need to do so, we need to follow some approach, we need to follow some guide in order to follow the whole approach of the framework. So a basic framework introduction. It's divided, as we said, on IPE. I'm just talking about it's the interactive prompt engineering, and the IPVE, which is for the visual part. So this framework that talking today, it's empowered the users, who can be any user right now in your company, to just leverage Gen AI effectively for both writing and visual content generation, right? And they are assuring that we have an ethical and responsible use of these tools. So this division recognize that while textual and visual outputs are following this approach and adhere to the same, let's say, ethical guidelines, they require some considerations. And these considerations are tailored to the specific nature of the outputs of the tool. So we're going to separate in this IPE, IVPE different sections describing each one of them. So when we understand, and by the end of this, it's not a workshop, as you said, you already seen this, it's just a presentation for me, but if you follow the approach of the framework, you will be able to craft very efficiently prompts by the end of this whole workshop. Let's talk about phases. So the framework has its own phases. You'll see internally you have the enhance, craft, and validate phase. You see some other pillars outside that we're going to talk about. The craft is, we need to focus on providing specific details and context so we can enhance the quality of the responses of the LLMs. So we have the craft phase. We're trying to craft our prompts efficiently. We use some guidelines of the framework we're going to see. What we're trying to do is just make the engine to better understand intentions of the user, like intentions, the formality of your inputs, for example, or the writing style. What's the format that you want to have when you're querying this, this engine? So the ING, which is the validation phase, which you will see here, it promotes an interactive dialogue with your LLM. So it integrates legal and security, of course, and privacy considerations. And you need to foster, a good communication with your engine. Like maybe you can have a back and forth, let's say, questions and responses with your tool. Sometimes you need to craft, the outcome of this is to craft the best, let's say, prompt for your engine. So you need to define you need to be very mindful when it comes to non-disclosure agreements, and this format. So you are giving the instructions to the engine how to perform back to the prompts, right? You can give more sophisticated or enhance the efficiency of using these custom roles. You can write functions, you can write some abbreviations. It's, for example, here we just instruct with these characters that just use this tone when I'm, talking to the engine on what I want to have as an output from the engine. And the format, which is clearly, we formulate here, you'll see another example. What I want is to get a format instruction to my engine. I want to have bullets, just give me bullets for a post, use uppercases or whatever. So you need to define what the HTML format is, so you can get the needed output of this engine. So you need to be very precise when it comes to format. So we don't have much time, so just 2 minutes. So the format is really critical. Specifically, it's part of the prompt, and you need to have the needed results based on this format actually to have your tone and your style. In the end, we need to understand the audience, right? It's very critical who we are talking to. As I talked earlier, we need to understand parameters. We need to do a lot of examples, especially when it comes to format. You need to be example-driven, work with your examples, use templates. You need to specify the actual tone, how you're writing and crafting the prompts all the time. And I think we can stop for a break now. And hope to come after the lunch, right? This is my tone. How was the tone? It's, it was really good.
Thank you very much, Yannis. Yes.
Thank you. Okay, I think we can start. I know why we're fewer now after the lunch. I sympathize the people that left after the lunch as well. So let's start a little bit and finish, let's say this. I would say it's not a type of workshop. Normally you see like, learn about prompt engineering and follow through the guide. So, but it's really good to know the basics of this framework. Where we stopped earlier, we talked a little bit about formatting, which is really critical when it comes to crafting, let's say, our prompts. We need to identify our audience. We spoke about. We'll do a summarization of the first part. We talked about the different components when it goes to prompt engineering, the system prompt engineering, the difference with the user prompt engineering. A lot of people are really particular, outside in the break, came to me and asked me about the RAGs, graph RAGs, which is part of the system prompt engineering, let's say, which is really good. So in this format, we need to understand the audience. We need to enable LLM to optimize the responses more effectively and ensure that we have the right content, we have the right tone and the right format, right? When it comes to the output that we are trying to achieve, let's say. Then we have the parameters. We need to understand the parameters. And why? Because we need to tailor our prompt to ensure that the model generates the responses based on our specific needs, right? This can be particularly useful when we want to lead, let's say, to more accurate results and more relevant results to our prompt. So different parameters, I can speak some of these parameters. For example, have temperature. It controls the randomness of the generated text. We have the response format. It actually determines the format of the generated response we said earlier in the first part. The maximum tokens, this is the maximum number of tokens of each engine. This is the number of words, as we said, in the generated response. So this will help a little bit control the length and the complexity of the output. We have the frequency penalty, these personalized tokens that appear more frequently in the input text. This can also help the model generate more creative response, by the way, and the presence penalty. This is another type of parameter that appear in the input text of the user. This can help the model actually generate more diverse response in the output. And the example-driven prompting we talked about, it's providing examples, more and more examples as prompts, so we can set up the pace. And if you saw in the first slide, in the beginning, we talked about the single shot and in the single shot, the few shot prompting, which is one of the techniques when it comes to example-driven prompting. So again, with examples, we try to train or set up the pace and the tone together with the engine. So the more examples you give, the better solution or the better output you get. Why we need this? We need more, maintaining more consistency. I have this ball. Oh my God, it's helping me. I'm relaxing right now speaking to you, so I don't know why I need to give it away. So example-driven is really important. You need to specify, but you shouldn't be overreacting. We're going to see in the end some anti-patterns, providing examples, don't get too much details, but not also be so abstract or becoming more dry when you're providing your prompt. So there are some misconceptions, there are some examples that you can improve your techniques. Now, this is another example of the format. We, again, with the example that we saw earlier, we guide our engine to use this format for my LinkedIn post. Here you can use brackets. It identifies the tone and different personalizations, let's say, for your prompt. For example, you can use a strong hook. You say, I want to have a short description in my post. Include also some key takeaways with some bullets. So what you're defining with this format, the engine will reply back to the user based on the format that he provides. So you are understanding, you are crafting better prompts with a way of providing input and description for this to your prompt. If you have a particular format in mind, just use this when you do your crafting, and always use this template-driven prompting we said in the previous slide. I think it was in the back. The template-driven prompting, you need to have templates. It will be highly effective to use this. The LLM will replace, of course, everything that it finds within your template, within your brackets, with the needed data based on your suggestions, let's say. Now, this is another part of the ChatGPT formatting. You can use inline code. You can use code blocks to display, for example, programming code. Sometimes someone is more technical or more engineering approach. You need to show something, a piece of code to your teams. You can use block codes. You have headers or the reasonable formatting types and the markdown syntax, for example. You can use that as well. This makes the interaction with the GPT more structured and more readable, right? You should be very specific what type of formatting types you use to have more clarity also on the output of your response. So, the task. Now, this phase, it's actually, as I say, clearly state the task of the prompt, what the prompt is going to do. We need to use some words here like craft, make, compose. You see some, this is our personal flavor, let's say, summarize, translate, generate, or rewrite. So this is part of the task. For example, here I can say that we can ask the LLM to compose a post, again in LinkedIn, on a specific topic, or we can revise a specific article, let's say. We need to ask LLM maybe to summarize the post to a PDF file, for example. I want to download my file. So you need to say generate, like a file. So you provide with a task the LLM to perform for you. So if you are facing a more complex task with multiple components, for example, consider diving into simpler and more individual tasks. So you need to split down a more complex one to more tasks. So it's one of the best practices, let's say. You need to limit your prompt to a specific single task, right? Or a subtask, let's say. Why we want to use this? This allows us to focus, like maintain focus, actually, and achieve a high quality in our responses. Why? Because we are addressing a specific task at a time. Furthermore, if not already addressed, take a moment to reflect on to specify your intended audience, right? We need to understand again here what's the audience in order to craft better tasks or subtasks. So we need to tailor a little bit what the tasks will do. So if additionally that the prompt includes extensive context or more information, additional information, we need to clearly, make sure that we have the tasks appropriately designed, let's say. So if there are any restrictions relevant to the task, we need to specify them as well. For instance, if there are topic styles or other perspectives that should be avoided, for example, or maybe emphasized, make sure to exclude these things that might not be of an interest when you are prompting. So this will actually help a lot. However, keep these restrictions limited, as we said. Maybe sometimes we cannot be so hard, let's say, on this. But the primary goal is to guide the LLM on what it should do, what will be the task, right, by the end. Okay. And you see here, we need to ask the model to ask questions. This is our primary goal. If one word can make the difference as well within your prompt, you need to make sure that you have emotional prompting, setting up the tone when it comes to emotional, enhancing output quality through leading words, minimizing bias in model outputs. This is one of the few things. Many people sometimes struggle to find the correct word, right? When it comes to English, I don't know how to phrase that. What's the best word to phrase something? So we're struggling to find, specifically the right words to do some individual task. For example, generate, review, we said earlier, or rewrite a LinkedIn post. These all can generate different output, we understand. The LLM can understand a different way each one of this character or token in the prompt sequence. So if you are unsure which word to use, you need to ask for some explanation maybe from LLM, right? If you don't know how to phrase something, you may get some indications from LLM. So the LLM are potentially capable of understanding a little bit and reacting to emotional signals. That's why I'm talking with emotional prompting. We said this, I think, yesterday. So studies have shown that some expressions, which can be emotional, can change the output and can actually employ it differently when it comes to AI chatbots, right? And these models, when you use them, they can generate better results, and that's why we should have this approach. This approach is called, as we talked about, emotional prompting. It's also enhancing the effectiveness of the responses generated by your prompts. The next part, which is utilizing specific leading words or phrases, can also improve the quality, right? You can emphasize the specific words in your prompt. You can have better precision from these models. For example, you can instruct the model with phrases like, think step by step, right? So what you are telling to the LLM is to create a guideline of tasks for you. So it's like a different wording, elaborate in detail. So I want more details about something. or I want more comprehensive explanation of a specific task. So the LLM will also be guided to adapt on a more structured way how to reply to the end user. So it's a technique. It's particularly useful, in scenarios where you want a more in-depth analysis. You need clear breakdown of the concepts, or you need stepwise instructions, and they are required, for example. So by effectively directing the model's focus and manner of response, you can tailor the output again based on your needs. It needs to meet these needs, and you need to incorporate different type of phrases as well. Additionally, if you want to begin your output in a more specific format, it's helpful to set the tone using the first few words when you're crafting your prompt. For example, you can start with, in the world of AI. This approach ensures that the response aligns more with an intended style of your user, right? And can be structured from the early beginning when you are crafting your prompts. Now, AI models, it can be like Copilot, as we said, or ChatGPT, never mind, can exhibit biases stemming from the nature of the training data. These biases may manifest in answers that, sometimes reinforce stereotypes, or they can offer skewed perspectives. However, research indicates that actively instructing the model to generate unbiased responses and to avoid reliance on stereotypes can mitigate this issue furthermore. It's crucial to be aware of potential biases, so we need to minimize them as much, and to actively seek a more balanced way, a more fair way, and inclusive in the outputs of our LLM. I can give you an example, but ensure that you can define to the LLM that the specific output that it's generating for you, it's unbiased and it's not relying on stereotypes. So you are talking to LLM and you're specifically describing that it shouldn't, it shouldn't rely on stereotypes. Now let's go to the validation phase. This is the end phase, let's say, of the whole framework of the IPE. Here it's very critical because, as we said, we are doing back and forth. So we are doing questions, we are asking questions, we are answering, we are tailoring, we are validating what the output is. So what we're trying to do, check if the prompt is interactive, does it include reference points. We'll also assume that no confidential data are leaked through the prompt, and confirm that the prompt, it's actually goal-driven, as we said in the first part. We need to align to a specific objective. That's the part of the validation phase, and we need to evaluate if the output is actually aligning with the goal that we set initially. So after confirming that the prompt is goal-driven, we'll validate how well the output meets our needs, our desired, let's say, goal, and we'll process the results. And this is a very interactive, let's say, process. So it needs to be a lot of back and forth questions with our model. So as we said, it's interactive. You need to craft prompts that promote interactive dialogue. It's really essential of this part of the validation, and fostering dynamic and engaging conversations with LLM. So as we said, it's a back-forth exchange and collaborative problem solving. So we need to enable us to explore ideas, we need to seek clarification and refine our inquiries. The interactive nature of prompts enhances the overall experience when it comes to using our prompt framework, helping derive meaningful insights from all the LLM responses that we have got so far. So it's very particularly valuable when dealing with large amount of data. Reflection is a key aspect of this approach, of the interactive approach. It involves designing prompts more that explicitly reference and build upon demonstrating awareness of the conversation flow, addressing specific points sometimes, and generating interactive and dynamic responses. So leveraging reflection in prompts facilitates a more engaging experience with our LLM. Now, As we say here, first share the context and then give it the task, as we said earlier about the task. So in the realm of content creation, crafting an effective strategy is paramount. Among the, the myriad of techniques that you can see available, interactive prompting emerges as a particular useful method. It's actually built on a foundational structure. Initially present the context, as we say here, followed by a task, define a task to the LLM to do with this context, especially when you are dealing with a large vast of data sets, let's say. Should it be possible to encapsulate everything in a single prompt? It's recommended to position the context at the bottom of your prompt. In summary, this is the part of the flow that the strategy is to adopt. Imagine you are about to embark on a writing journey. The initial step involves setting the stage. You need to have the necessary background information. This could range from different topics you wish to explore to insights from articles or other sources that you plan to incorporate into your piece. Now, the non-disclosure is we have sensitive information, of course, we don't want to leak them. We need to have compliance. We need to ensure that we have compliance with non-disclosure agreements, the NDAs. So we need to specify constraints, information, guidelines to secure our data and have some privacy, let's say, to maintain ethical practices. It's important to execute that in the validation phase before submitting any of your prompts. Once you send something to an AI tool, it may be saved somewhere, right? Especially it's in the cloud, it's not on-premise, you are not building your on-premise solution. So everything is exposed through the internet. So you need to make sure you are safeguarding information, confidential information, let's say. And the goal-driven. So you need to define the goals, again, also in the validation phase. What are your objectives in your prompts? It's very essential for guiding the LLM to provide more accurate results. By specifying your desired goals, your outcomes, and indicating this information or insights, the LLM can better understand and align what you are trying to achieve. So it will craft the responses in a way that meets your needs, your expectations. It ensures that the LLM understands the intent, the tone, and focusing to address a specific need effectively. So before sending any prompts, it's important to first go back, validate whether the prompt itself is structured the way that you want to have a specific goal matched, and it will help reach your goal. One of the things is very basically, check your prompt, it's very clear, it's complete, it's aligned with the desired outcome. Only after this validation of the inputs, you should proceed with the next step of the framework. So after you send your prompt, the next step is to validate if the outcome of this prompt is actually meeting the results that you specified with, as we said, with the different tasks, with the different template-driven examples that you have provided. You need to do a validation if what you get is what you requested from your LLM. Especially, you need to be very careful when it comes to legal documents, an example of that, or other contexts, but because the legal documents, you need to be very precise. Precision is very critical, especially in this part of the case. If necessary, you can also adjust formatting parameters. If you want to refine the output of your LLM, maybe you want to improve furthermore, you can do that in the phase of the validation as well. And we go to the enhancement phase. So this is an iterative phase, as we said. We use the components from that phase to refine, enhance the prompt, maybe use a different style. We need to ensure that it better aligns what we're trying to achieve with our goal. It's iterative and the back and forth situation again. If the output is correct, it's time to adapt and improve your overall strategy. So what you need to do is start identifying any reusable component from that prompt. that can be applied to future prompts, for example, and or shared within your organization in general. So you need to save these components, share these components, not only speeds up productivity, of course, but it also fosters a more sustainable, let's say, approach by reducing redundant work and streamlining processes across all the teams within your organization. So you need to have in mind continuously improve your prompts, embrace new possibilities. It's really essential and critical to generate optimal outcomes. So stay proactive, stay adaptable, and ensure that you have an ongoing success in your prompt engineering. Now, it's not necessary to format your prompt again in this enhancement phase following all the steps we have done previously, but it is important to include all the elements, as we say here, of the framework within your prompt. So by incorporating these components, you provide the LLM the needed information and guidance to generate a response, again, that aligns your needs. This is, just an example. Again, what we are trying to define here is the role, perform the task, use the format requirements that I want, use a register or writing style, and use this context. And what the LLM is doing is just understanding what the needs are of the user, trying to comply with this description, let's say. These are techniques. You can craft prompts that are giving remarkable results, actually response from the LLM, and taking your writing, let's say, experience and engagement to new heights. If you are looking for specific examples, you can, always copy and paste maybe templates describing within the framework. As I said, it's in the link. They have also certification of the framework. You can be certified as a prompt engineer. So it's very good to follow and do also the certification from my point. You can explore and give more examples firsthand. So go ahead, interact with the LLM, and discover the power of the framework more and more. So let's go to the visual, let's say, prompt engineering. As we said, we talked a little bit more about the textual part. Now it comes to the diffusion models, how we can utilize AI for getting more sophisticated or more quality generated images and video generation tasks. Of course, while have more ethical approach and responsible use. But using this framework, we can actually effectively utilize the capabilities of AI tools for all the image and video generation to improve actually the visual content. Again, we have the crafting phase. The IVPE, it's part of the same framework. It follows the same phases, just we have a different reason for it. So the crafting phase focuses more on defining detailed visual context, artistic maybe registers. You have different parts of formats now. You're not going to provide text, but you want to generate images, so you have a different format that you need to follow to guide the AI to better understand what the intentions are when you want to generate video. So we can result in an image that is better fit our needs. It's, it reflects creative visions, for example, specifying these influences, artistic ones, technical settings, and the primary task objectives helps the AI overall to align with your visual style. And we have the context as well. We had a talk in the beginning around the context window. Here, for effective visual content creation, it's critical to provide a detailed description of the scene you're trying to do. So understanding the context helps create an image that accurately reflects our vision. So additionally, we need to clarify the purpose or the message of each of the images that we want to generate. So whether it's to convey a narrative, illustrate maybe a concept, or evoke some emotions, you need to know the purpose guides to have a creative direction for your LLM and ensure that the final product is what resonates with your intended, let's say, audience. Now, the context you'll see here, we need to provide the details here in the describe scene, which is the first part. What is happening in your image that you want to generate, right? So we need to include main actions or events, outlines whether the image take place, the setting, where it is, a mountain, or you are in a classroom, you are in a conference. You need to specify the setting of your image. You need to detail the main figures of the image, which are the characters or the personas we talked in the previous part of the framework. Who they are, how they like, what do you want. It's like you need to have a vivid imagination, but stick to what you are trying to intend when we are talking about video and image generation. And the last part, which is the purpose, right? What's the intent of this image? What is intended to convey? What we're trying to achieve using this image, by the way. So we need to define a goal, as we did with the IPE in the first part. Now, the register, it's creating the content, and we need to specify the artistic register right now, which is really essential. We need to choose around different styles, maybe different techniques to be used, from cartoonish to photorealistic. So you need to detail very well your technique here. You need to have a mix or a variety, but you need to focus also on a specific method, because we need to have a more, we need to achieve the desired artistic outcome of this image. So we need to describe again mood, the tone, the color scheme, for example, so we can set some emotional tone in the image, some visual tone of the image. You can be realistic, you can be abstract, but all are trying to refine the artistic direction of the image generation. So here in the register phase, we indicate first the artistic style, as we said. It can be realistic, abstract. We define the colors of the palette, like what type of colors you want to have in your image generation. You need to describe, as you said, the emotional atmosphere of the image. You can be cozy, sober, so set up the tone of the visual representation or the outcome you are trying to have. And you have an acting role. We said we have personas, as we said in the IPE. So here you need to provide an acting role by specifying a style. For example, you have a known artist, you want to follow this artist, or have an artistic movement that the image should emulate, I would say. So this incorporates adopting the techniques of some pre-existing artists in your image generation. For example, you might request an image that reflects surrealistic elements or Salvador Dali, or the bold simplicity of Andy Warhol. This approach not only pays homage to great artists, but you get some flavor out of this artist to your own benefit for your output of the response. Now, the register specifies the artistic influence, as we said, or style to be emulated in the image. It can detect the visual approach and the techniques to be used. It can detail as well the aesthetic elements and the qualities. So style should be aligned with the intended artistic direction. So it can range from detailed realism to broad abstract forms. We need to incorporate these elements of awareness to introduce unique aspects that challenge traditional norms sometimes. And ensure that the image features a variety of visual elements. That's the outcome. We need to have different textures, a dynamic color range, a mix of geometric or organic shapes, also to keep the viewer engaged when it sees the output of your engine. Now, the format, it's also critical. We need to define the technical aspects of the format, right? But now we're talking about video and media generation. So what we want to define as a format is dimensions, maybe, orientation, whether we have landscape of my image or my video, portrait. So if a particular aspect ratio is needed, for example, for a widescreen, if you want a square format, mention it as well in your prompt. So you can ensure that the image fits the actual resolution. It fits perfectly in the platform that you want to incorporate to. So format, when it comes to video and media generation, it's really, really critical as part of the design requirements. Now, we see here, as we said in the first, define the orientation, sets the aspect ratio, for example, for a widescreen, if you want to have a widescreen, and specify the image type. For example, you can have different photo types. You can have cinematic, landscape, photography. So you need to define the formats of your image generated to better align with your requirements as well. The next part is specify lighting conditions, to capture in the image. Maybe you want it a little bit more bright, more soft, or you need to have some dramatic space behind it. And you need to specify also the camera settings to be used. Here we have the saturation speed, ISO, show type. There are some examples. It's very essential, though, to understand that these all have to do with the mood and the visibility in the image. Using the time of the day, for example, can be also a useful method when you're describing your prompts. And settings about the camera, as we said, it's very critical. You can use also lens type, we are not referring here, focus type, are critical for the desired clarity of your generated output, the depth of the field, and maybe motion effects that we want to have or incorporate. Now, describe the key element or focal points. These are the tasks that must be included, right? And this is special instructions. You need some features that need to be featured. This clarity in defining which task we want ensures that the image not only meets the artistic, as we said, based on the format and the stylistic expectation, but also fulfilling its intended function, whether it's to advertise, for example, educate, or entertain people and users. So the first is the objective of the goal, what we are trying to do. What we are trying to do with this image or this media we're trying to generate, right? We need to educate people or entertain. We need to have clear instructions to generate the image and indicate which version of the image should be used if relevant, for example, which is the part of the parameters, which are critical, by the way. They can leverage specific technological advancements here and ensure compatibility to specific styles that we may have or techniques. So also keep in mind that, for some models, it's necessary to specify parameters, such as maybe the style, the character references, if you have artistic, or artists' reference to your image, the quality, and other similar aspects. Now, the validation phase will check if the prompt is interactive. Does it include reference points, right? We ensure that we don't have confidential data. Again, as we said in the IPE, again in the IVPE, it's the same. We need to make sure no leaked data are out, are giving away from our image. We don't share and confirm that the prompt that we have is goal-driven. We evaluate the output again and again, and after confirming that the output or the prompt is goal-driven, then we can validate whether the output meets our desired goal and provides the result we expect. So, crafting prompts that encourage this interactive engagement is critical for having more effective image and video creation. This involves, creating prompts that allow for iterative feedback and adjustments. It will enable you to refine some visual elements and achieve the desired outcomes. The interactive nature of these prompts enhances the creative process, allowing you to explore different visual ideas sometimes, request modifications, and perfect the final output. This is, again, about perfecting what the LLM will respond back to the user. So you need to foster a dynamic exchange. You can ensure that the generated images or media are aligned with your vision. You need to incorporate specific feedback, and maybe changes are requested at this point. So again, it's a back and forth phase, I would say. Now, to streamline this process, we need to incorporate a directive, like, again, into, for example, the custom instructions for ChatGPT, if you use ChatGPT. Or, so, for example, when creating the images, I need to be returned with a seed number and the gen ID. This is what I'm saying here in my Copilot. Yeah, and they're replying back. I can always return back the seed number and the gen ID. So you generate the image of a programmer. This is my prompt. It will create an image for you, very basically, but it will return back what information you want about the image. The gen ID, by the way, it's a unique identifier assigned to each of these images by DAL-E. So it's used to reference and retrieve the specific image from the system, if I want to reference again in the future. The seed ID, it's referred as the seed, as normally we reflect. It's related to the randomness used in the generation process of such image that we see. In generative models like DAL-E3, randomness plays a critical role in creating, these unique outputs that we have. The seed determines the starting point of this randomness, by the way, and using the same seed with the same input prompt will actually, or theoretically, produce the same image every time you want to produce the same image again and again. So you have a controlled way, let's say, to generate the requested outcome that you want with this technique. Right. So we see some code today. Oh my God, everybody asked if my presentation will have code. I don't remember, I said just one slide if I have. This is the only slide. You will see some code base incorporated. But, as I say here, it's true potential comes when you can use this to modify images after they are generated. So you can incorporate some code, for example, here, to further enhance your output from the LLM. So you can simply ask this. Here it's just a Python example to ask to apply filters using the Python script to your image. So it's pretty understandable that it can use your instructions based on Python to add a grayscale color, for example, filter to the image that is generated. So there are a lot of examples. You can have blur effects, you can have color effects, you can have contrast adjustment, rotation or cropping. You can do whatever you like to your image or the output, and this can be done also through guiding through a unique code base to achieve your outcome. Now, the non-disclosure, especially critical when we generate images and videos, because we have more realistic information rather than text, let's say. Maybe we can incorporate, you see a lot of faces when you say for an artist generated, it's not the actual artist that is generated from these engines. So because you have critical information, maybe private data that you don't want to leak, we need to have also an ensure compliance. So you need to have non-disclosure agreements, which is really critical for these engines. Specify restrictions on these agreements. What do you want to have as data security and privacy so we can maintain, let's say, ethical practices. Nowadays, it's a little bit more nice after we introduce the NDAs and this process of the copyrights consideration. It's like more easy for us, more relaxed to go with this, but make sure you do this before start prompting, right? Ensure that all sensitive developments are properly handled. I have seen a lot of, even engineers using specific code bases that they don't know if It has some corporate data that you don't want to leak, of course, so you need to have these considerations as well at this phase, even when it comes to image generation or media generation. So while tools like DALL-E offer the ability to generate images for commercial use, it is paramount to ensure that these images are free of copyrighted elements. So this phase is about that. We need to have due diligence. We need to confirm that the generated content is not having any copyrights or copyrighted material. Review the image very well. You know, if you have some recognizable features on that or designs that are protected by copyright, you need to be very sure that you adhere to legal standards always. And you need to maintain ethical usage as much as possible. Not as much as possible, I think it's 100% that you need to comply on that. Additional note on acting roles, when you utilize the acting role component, as we said in the previous section, it's very critical to assign an artistic influence, but be aware of the potential for including copyrighted elements, right? You don't want to have this as well, and this is just an example. For example, emulating a Marvel style might, you know, incorporate some signature superhero elements that are copyrighted, for example. So you can see Superman or whatever. Oh, sorry, Superman, it's DC, oh my God. How did I do that? I'm a Marvel fan. I don't know why I said Superman. So you need to make sure these are copyrighted elements, and you need to comply to that as well. Goal-driven, specify the visual outcomes, right? That's the whole idea. You need to emphasize, you know, allow the generation tools to align their output with your specifications, your goals. This approach ensures that the tools understand your intent, your focus, and what you are trying to produce as a visual outcome. And they can precisely meet your needs each time. So after submitting the prompt, make sure to review the content to ensure it meets your expectations. And we go to the enhancement phase. We need to validate and have this back and forth situation we said in IPE. We need to improve our prompts, the initial prompts. This phase is about improvements and enhancements, and we need to improve the quality of our image generation. We need to have some strategies over here. And here we can handle different strategies because we're talking about image generation. You know, they are having some challenges when it comes to text that it's embedded within our image. Sometimes this is a challenge for our models when they are tasked to do image generation. Maybe they can lead to inaccuracies. So to mitigate this, it's advisable to exclude any text for your image. Just stick to your image in the media generation when you are doing your initial prompt to LLM. Alternative, you can use Canva. Who knows Canva? I mean, everyone actually. It has a way nice feature, which is grab text feature, and you can modify any text in the image after you generate it through LLM, right? This approach ensures that we have clarity, we have correctness when it comes to visual content we create. Now, a valid prompt that encompasses all parts of this framework, you know, here you can specify an example, but it's in the enhancement phase, you don't necessarily need to format your prompt. Again, but we need to include all the elements of the framework within the prompt, right? And you need to be very precise when you're using that. And there are some prompt techniques. In order to understand the core framework, we need to master some engineering techniques and strategies are very critical for having more effective outcomes for the LLMs. So this part of the framework delves a little bit more in the range of the techniques for crafting a more sophisticated task, let's say. So if you go through the framework, there is a lot of connection between the phases that we said together with this technique, so you can make like a close connection to that. So we have the single few shot prompting technique. So the 0 examples, as we say here, is 0, 1, and few-shot prompting. It's very critical. These terms refer to the amount of task or information that you provide to LLM or provided to the model. For example, ChatGPT are trained, as we said, on a vast amount of data, but sometimes some data that cannot be available, for example, to the model. For example, if you see the free version of ChatGPT, is not connected to the internet sometimes, and it was trained until 2021, I think, and they have some limitations, let's say. So therefore, you need to go to a more commercial use, let's say, for ChatGPT to find more input. Let's dive a little bit more in these techniques. A zero-shot prompting, as we say here, enables the model to make predictions about previous data that are unseen without the need for additional training your model. So we'll see here an example, write a haiku about AI. So you get this out from Copilot, which is, you don't need any additional thing to train your model. And the next one, which is the single-shot prompting, it's a little bit more indicative of I'm changing a little bit my prompt here. So I'm writing a haiku about AI, but I'm giving examples. So this technique is, okay, don't be so abstract. Don't just write a general question to your prompt. Create an example as well, so to guide, let's say, the LLM how will respond. This is the single-shot prompting. So you get a limited amount of task or a specific information that what it's trying to aid the model in adapting to a specific task and generate a response accordingly. So I'm saying, okay, guide me and write a haiku, but I need an example about a nature, gentle breeze, whispers. So I give an example of this haiku, and this is the format I need from LLM to follow. So this is a single-shot prompting, and we have the few-shot prompting. So all of them are here, related to how high context you have or high accuracy you have based on the different prompting techniques. The few-shot is very close to single-shot, but involves providing the model with more examples, not just one. Knowing when and how to apply these prompting techniques are very critical and essential, for efficiency, customization, maybe the data availability that you want to have. Now let's talk about chain of thought prompting. You heard about this yesterday. Anybody? You know about this term? I think in the room? Yep. So, as we say, remember the good old times at school when we had to explain how we arrived at the conclusion of our math solution, right? This approach also works when we have prompt engineering. It's called chain of thought prompting. So it's a technique used in working with large language models like GPT-3, 4, when you break down a complex question or problem into a series of steps, as we said earlier about the tasks, that are like a chain of thought, right? So you are creating a more logical chain of thought. So instead of directly asking your model to generate a final answer with a single prompt, you instruct it to go through a logical steps, let's say, which is our chain process. This is a reasoning process and provide a step-by-step explanation or solution. So the idea is to guide the model through this process and the process that you want the model to follow. By doing so, most of the times, you get more accurate results of your prompt. You get more detailed responses, especially when you have more complex, let's say, problems. What it encourages the whole model to think through the problem holistically, systematically, similar to how a human actually would explain their thoughts with their logical steps in order to solve a complex problem. And this is particularly useful technique, actually, that everybody nowadays that want to have more sophisticated results, they should follow. So imagine an example. Here we have, I'm not me, it's not my photo, right? But you have a guy that specifying to ChatGPT, the way that he wants to go back to his home, and they have two options over here. You have the option one, taking a bus, taking a train for another 30 minutes, and then I want to get the train another 10 minutes, and then another 20 minutes for bus, and the option two, going by car, it will take 1 hour and 10 minutes. Surprisingly, the earlier versions of ChatGPT said option one is faster, right? Which is not. But you need to simply ask the model to provide an answer, but you may receive an incorrect solution, which is this one, right? By the way, in the latest versions, they don't do this mistake, but again, there are, trained better. Always validate, as we said earlier. Now, if we apply the same model, but I want to have some reasoning, a chain of reasoning, why I need the LLM, okay, explain to me what is faster, but I need the reasoning for your answer. So it will reply with the correct answer because it's validating each step of the chain as a human person. This is the part of a technique that you can see a different result and validate the different result. Now, the emotional prompting is that, emotional expressions that are employed in interactions with all the AI chatbots, they tend to generate better results as well. Here, the LLM's models that are potentially capable of comprehending and reacting to emotional signals. So you'll see the prompts, the original ones and the hours. And the hours are the emotional prompt that we are getting, and then the original prompt. If you get an emotional prompt that have the original prompt, but adding your emotions, like this is very important in my career, please reply back to me, you'll get a different answer. So you see emotional prompt is also a technique that you can provide effectiveness with your prompts. Now, some common pitfalls before finalizing our talk. Being too vague, right? We don't have asking. A poor prompt can be, tell me about business. A better prompt can be, explain the key components of a successful business plan for a tech startup. So you give more information about your goal. Don't be so abstract. The LLM will be also abstract in the response. Then you don't want to get too many details, as we said in the previous part. Don't overuse details, right? I need to write an article about dogs and I want to include information about different, I don't want to talk about the rest. So a better prompt is outline specific parts of your request, of your prompt, set the tone, set some needed details that are very important, but not overuse too much. And ignoring context. So you don't want to leave out important aspects, right, of your prompt. You need to provide the necessary background of information. What's the best way to grow tomatoes? This is a poor prompt. But what's the best way to grow tomatoes in a small urban garden with limited sunlight? So you specify the scenery, you specify details about the specific prompt that are really important. And reaching our conclusion of this talk, I advise you to go through the link, the framework, step-by-step guide, complete, and hopefully master the prompt engineering in a way that you can get the certification as well, as I said earlier. It's a well-designed framework. It can create engaging. You need to know how effectively use nowadays LLMs, because nobody knows exactly. There are no standards when we are doing prompt engineering. But you need to follow some techniques, as we saw in this talk, in order to make your prompt engineering better, especially the QA world, because the next generation is to test all this AI that is coming into life. People with the QA knowledge, they are stick to different testing types up until AI, and now they need to test all this, especially when it comes to LLMs deployed for different companies, different domains. So leveraging these structured prompts, the developers can ensure, or the QA people or the developers can ensure that the systems provide more accurate results, empathetic results, they don't have bias, and they have adaptable responses. Okay, time for, I left a few minutes, I think, for questions, like 2 minutes.
For 1 or 2 questions.
Yeah, 2 minutes. I think it's very self-explanatory.
I will
That's
have
good.
1 question
Oh,
here.
all right.
Just wait for the microphone.
Cool. Awesome. Awesome.
We have been introduced yesterday about the Anthropic prompt improver, prompt optimizer. Should we rely on them, or we should better try to always craft better prompts? Or are they obsolete, and etc.?
Sometimes they are, but I think, you know, these tools, I wasn't there, by the way. What, it were some generators?
Jonathan said that there is an Anthropic prompt optimizer. I didn't
All right,
have time to-
optimizer, yeah. Yeah, I mean, okay, the wave comes to that everything can be optimized even automatically, or the people shouldn't be educated that much, but I think the whole idea of the prompt framework is to educate your people to, as a human being or as an engineer or a QA, to understand better also the domain, because we're not there yet at this point that everything is fully, you know, automated in a way.
And you know your problem, the machine doesn't know
Yeah,
it.
definitely. You are guiding, and these guidance are what we saw here today, techniques that you can further guide your LLM, improve also the training data of your LLM based on the human factor. But you are the person that you are building and using this technology. Cool.
Thank you very much. Don't have
Thank you.
any other time for questions. Thank you very much, Yanni.
Thanks.